Episode 4 of The Traitors was an all-time classic reality TV episode. Let's talk about it. First off, Deontay left the game. Oh well, what can you do? So the episode picks up with Parvati trying to carry out the mission of murdering somebody in plain sight. He's walking around the castle super awkwardly with his cup like, take a drink, you want a drink, you want a drink, you want a drink? Very suspect, but nobody seems to suspect anything. We'll get to that. But finally, somebody takes the sip and it is Ekin-Su. Wah wah. Ekin-Su takes the fateful sip, come get a sip, and she is, or so they think. Anyways, the morning comes and the Traitors are the first to arrive for breakfast. And Dan and Phaedra still don't know who Parvati gave the cup to. So Parvati tells them Ekin-Su and they are shocked because it was not their plan. Shocked. Shocked. Phaedra is especially flabbergasted because she had voted to banish Ekin-Su. So in her mind, it's like, oh my gosh, well, this is going to come back on me. So the rest of the group arrives to breakfast and seemingly nobody was murdered because everybody's there. But then Alan walks in with the bad news. Somebody has been murdered. That was my best Scottish accent. Tells him somebody was poisoned in plain sight. Instantly, everybody becomes paranoid because they have no idea when and where the murder occurred. So for this week's challenge, they're doing a funeral procession. And in order to figure out who was murdered and win some money, they have to guess who wasn't murdered. Get some funny moments. Sandra makes a joke about Larsa's age. And one by one, people are revealed to have not been murdered. And eventually, the group narrows it down to 3 people. MJ, Parvati, and Ekin-Su. Instantly, everybody's like, it must be MJ. That's the only one that makes sense. And even though Phaedra and the other traitors know that's not the case, they have to go along with it. Because if they don't, everybody's gonna know that they're traitors. So they knowingly have to sacrifice $20,000 to stay in the game. Everybody guesses MJ, and they are unanimously wrong. It was Ekin-Su, and she is gone. The group is shocked. I mean, it doesn't make sense. Phaedra does her best not to laugh, but nobody understands why Ekin-Su would have been murdered. In the midst of the confusion, some people bring up MJ's name. When she wasn't murdered, people are thinking, okay, well, she must have either been the person who did the murder or been conspiring with those who did. Anyways, the group gets back to the castle, the housewives and Sandra convene, and Larsa shares her thoughts. Basically, she thinks one of the traitors must have been a strong alpha male, probably CT or Dan. And her logic is that with some of the strong men gone from the game that they need for the challenges, it must be some of the other strong men taking them out. Larsa naming some of the gamers as suspects sets off alarm bells for Sandra, because she is in the middle of the chasm that has occurred between the housewives and the gamers. Let me explain. So obviously within this cast, we have people from all different walks of reality TV, but there have been 2 main groups forming. The first group is the gamers. So that's the people who've been on Survivor, on Big Brother, and The Challenge. Janelle, Dan, Parvati, Sandra, CT, and Trishelle. And on the other side, you have the housewives / Bravo celebrities. Phaedra, Larsa, Sheree, Tamra, and MJ. Those are the 2 main groups right now. So Sandra, as someone who's been hanging out with the housewives, getting to know them, is playing both sides. So Sandra takes what Larsa said about CT and Dan and takes it back to the gamers and says, hey y'all, Larsa has some of your names in her mouth. So then all of a sudden, Larsa is a target. But she's not the only housewife on people's radars. One of the most exciting parts of the Traitors as a game format is that sort of inevitable moment when the traitors have to turn on each other. Now, it doesn't usually occur until later in the season, but Dan and Parvati decide, hey, now's kind of a good time to start to set Phaedra up. Now, if you know me, you know I'm a Phaedra fan, so I am not happy about this. Neither are any of the Bravo Housewives fans. Basically, their logic is that Phaedra's not really in the game like we are. If we set her up, it's gonna be an easy out. She's not gonna push back. Child, how wrong were they? We'll get to that in a second though. So we get to the round table, and right away, Janelle brings up her suspicion that Larsa had something to do with the murder of Ekin-Su. She says that when Larsa's boyfriend Marcus was murdered, that Larsa raised like a cheers, like cheers everybody, cheers to Marcus, and that was the moment when she murdered Ekin-Su, allegedly. Now, any avid Real Housewives fan knows that Larsa is one to fight back. And fight back she does. I think you're weird. I think how selfish you are is weird. Janelle met her match on that day. So Larsa is now activated and the tension is rising in the room. Aided by the fact that they just came back from a funeral, they're all still dressed in all black like the Omen. Come on, Lil' Kim. So the tension's high. And Larsa now takes the moment to say her suspicion that the alpha males are behind all of it. Specifically, she names CT. Now, interestingly, none of the gamers have anything to say about this, but Kevin does. Kevin says he doesn't believe the alpha male theory. And MJ says, well, you're an alpha male. Of course you don't believe it. So then Kevin's activated and Kevin and MJ get into it. But then Parvati steps up and says, you know what? I think the people who are really able to act and perform and trick us are the Real Housewives. Now let's just be clear. Parvati's target tonight was Larsa, but she also said going into it that she wanted to cast some doubt on Phaedra as well. So now Phaedra's activated and she is not playing around with Parvati. Phaedra and Larsa deny that the Housewives are this clique that's controlling everything. And Phaedra specifically says, "Don't come for the Housewives, honey. Don't do that, Parvati," pronouncing every single letter of that lady's name. It was hilarious. But also understandable of why Phaedra was upset, because we're supposed to be working together, Parvati. Why are you throwing dirt on my name in front of everybody? So Phaedra tells Parvati, "Don't play with it, don't play with it. Come on, baby, don't play with it." And they go into the vote. So there's one vote for John, courtesy of Sheree. She doesn't even think he's a traitor, but she just like, nobody knows. Anyways, one vote for CT, courtesy of Larsa. One vote for MJ, courtesy of Peter. 4 votes for Kevin, courtesy of Tamra, MJ, Phaedra, and John. And everybody else voted Larsa. Larsa's banished, and Phaedra and Sheree are not happy. Gamers, meanwhile, are doing their best to show some sense of disappointment. They're not convincing anybody. They leave the round table, and despite her completely outlandish vote, Sheree is actually onto the gamers more than anybody else. She says specifically, "The gamers have clicked up. They are playing the shh out of us." And I'm so glad Sheree said that, because that is absolutely true. One of the biggest things we see with like all-stars seasons or like mixing like players who already played before is pre-gaming. The idea that they come into the game knowing who they're going to work with and they proceed accordingly. Now, I'm not going to specifically accuse anybody of pre-gaming. I'm not going to go into that right now. But I will say the gamers are all moving as a unit. And honestly, it's a good strategy. Like someone said in the first episode, it's better to have the enemy you know than the enemy you don't know. But part of me wishes that they would just be honest about that, at least with the viewers. Some of their logic on things just does not make sense as it's expressed to us. For example, CT says that the gamers are being picked off one by one. And that's not true. Johnny Bananas is the only gamer that's gone. And sure, Ekin-Su was on Love Island, which is technically a game, but like, we're talking about the gamers. The gamers are clicked up and seemingly ignoring the reality that at least one of them has to be a traitor. Like, there's no way they're gonna have that many competitive legends in a game and not make any of them the traitors. But for some reason, they're all pretending that that's not the case, and like the Housewives are these gaming masterminds. Now, as frustrating as that may be, it does emphasize the importance in a game like this of moving as a unit. This is clearly becoming a two-sides type of game. And those sides are not the traitors and the faithfuls at the moment. It's the gamers and the Housewives. But the Housewives didn't vote together. It wouldn't really have made a difference because Larsa got so many votes. But they have to be more strategic about how they move, especially playing in a game with this many strategic masterminds. Now, they could potentially pull in John. He did vote with some of them. They could maybe pull in Kevin and Peter, but they both have beef with MJ. But it's going to be really interesting to see how that all plays out. And I think it's going to be dictated in large part by the next murder, which who knows who's going to go home. Because when the traitors went back to the turret, Phaedra was pissed. And she went in on Parvati. I'm not even going to put it here. I'm not going to show the video. You just got to go watch the episode. It is literally a legendary reality TV moment already. So Phaedra latches into poverty. And she also warns Dan, don't play with it either. And this is exactly what I pointed out in my last recap. Dan and Parvati have completely underestimated Phaedra. And because Parvati made the mistake of going after Phaedra in public instead of doing it privately, Phaedra is onto them. There was a specific moment when Phaedra said, "People think you're a traitor, so you're gonna play fair." Basically implying that I've been running defense for you, but at any given moment, I could stop. And you could be the next one walking out that door. So again, play fair. Phaedra is not this dumb housewife. She is so much smarter than Dan and Parvati give her credit for. And that's the case with a lot of the housewives and a lot of reality stars in general. But these gamers, these players are about to realize that Phaedra Parks Esquire does not play. And this moment touches on a big strength that the housewives have, which is engaging in conflict. Like every episode they're arguing. I can't even imagine the stress of a reunion. And Phaedra sat through 7 reunions. This is why this format is so interesting to watch play out. Because on one hand, the housewives are honestly very outmatched strategically. In terms of navigating conflict and stressful moments, nobody does it like them. So we're gonna have to watch and see which side of that wins out, especially with Kate Chastain coming back in. The traitors are kind of at a standstill at the moment. There's no way in hell Phaedra's letting them murder one of the housewives now. And likewise, I don't know if Dan and Parvati are gonna let one of the gamers go either. It's really gonna come down to those people in the middle in terms of murders, in terms of getting their votes. They're going to be the crucial swing players in the next stages of the game. And it's going to be crucial for Phaedra and the other Bravo players to get some of these gamers on the chopping block. Ray has already mentioned going after Janelle, like it's about to be a war. And honestly, I'm excited to see it. Like, if the Housewives can manage to flip this on the gamers and get some of them out, it's gonna be legendary. But what did y'all think of the episode? Let me know in the comments. Let me know your analysis, your thoughts, and follow me. Subscribe to my page. I do these recaps and analysis every week. I also recap Real Housewives, Married to Medicine, so follow me for more.